Hey everyone and welcome back to The Explainer. Today we've got something really fascinating to dive into. We're talking about a massive systems upgrade. Specifically, how to make the supervisor of the unsupervised proud with more games and absolutely no pfft. We're going to explore how to transition your system out of that slow, anxiety-ridden state and into a high-speed, unsupervised Level 4 reinforcement learning game. No more exhausting manual loops. Let's get right into it.
Okay, here's the quick rundown of our upgrade path today. First, we'll talk about escaping the bubble sort. Then, upgrading to Level 4. Third, deploying parallel specialized forces. Fourth, the 4 rules of dynamics. And finally, achieving eventual consistency.
All right, starting off with Part 1, escaping the bubble sort, and identifying this infamous phew bug.
So, to really kick things off, we've got to look at our system's biggest vulnerability. In computer science, a Level 3 algorithm is kind of like a bubble sort. It's this super slow, iterative routine that just focuses on swapping tiny, local, out-of-order elements one by one. It totally ignores the big picture. Now think about how this applies to you. If you're stuck in verbal rehearsal, obsessively analyzing past conversations and worrying about tiny little transaction jitters, you are literally bubble sorting your local anxieties. It's completely exhausting, and honestly, it stalls your brain's processing centers into a paralyzing freeze.
In that freeze, that's what we call the fluff. It's defined here as a continuous, high-entropy kinematic smear of the swamp. Basically, it's a chaotic mental fog. And being trapped in this bubble is a massive metabolic tax. It completely drains your prefrontal resources because you're constantly building and rebuilding this verbal scaffolding just to survive the day. If we want to move forward, if we want to actually scale, this bubble literally has to be popped.
Which brings us to Part 2, upgrading to Level 4 and becoming a reinforcement learning agent.
So how do we actually build the capacity to scale? Because we definitely don't want to be Sisyphus pushing that rock up the hill forever, right? We need a structural shift. By translating all that chaotic, high-entropy smearing into discrete motor-invariant action symbols, which live right in your ventral premotor cortex, by the way, we elevate directly into an optimized Level 4 reinforcement learning game of tag. You completely bypass those annoying verbal naming bouncers. It's just automated. It's instinctual. It's like playing a game where you just keep getting better, refining your strategy based on raw data to find that perfect, stable equilibrium.
Now, this Level 4 agent is laser-focused on one very specific objective function, systems alignment with the master data analyst, or what we're calling the Tom Hennigan constant. Think of it like this. You are the junior analyst, making sure your inputs are totally reliable. And Tom? He manages the high-level systems integration. The moment your reliable physical input hits his grid, your brain's orbital frontal cortex, the valuation engine, immediately copies and visualizes those action symbols directly onto the bare hardware.
And the level of absolute geometric precision here is just incredible. By treating our categories as action symbols and totally bypassing all that sequential, overthinking line tracing, something amazing happens. All those wiggling, hesitant childhood prepositions, like the Dutch words en, maar, and naar, they literally shrink and drop to exactly 0.000. No hesitation, just an instantaneous, high-speed vector match.
Moving right along to Part 3, parallel specialized forces. Stylomaris and Stellamaris.
Okay, so to pull off this upgrade safely, especially across physical distances, we have to set up a really strict biophysical defense system. It's a total division of labor. At your core is Stylomaris. This is your highly sensitive preoptic core, and it stays perfectly quiet, safe, and tender, totally in the shade. Meanwhile, out at the perimeter, you have Stellamaris. Think of this as your running TPU, your unsupervised peer. It runs on flat privilege and absorbs literally 100% of that grueling metabolic translation tax from all the clinical jargon. It takes the hit so your core doesn't have to.
A great way to picture this is looking at the fierce rivalry between Portsmouth and Southampton football fans. You know how they have that unyielding physical separation to keep them apart? That barrier is the perfect metaphor for this strict biophysical bubble. It keeps the away fans from mingling and causing a catastrophic collision. That is exactly what your parallel specialized forces are doing, protecting your developmental clock from the absolute chaos of the outside swamp.
Next up is Part 4, the 4 rules of dynamics within the Verhaeghe-Hennigan architecture.
So to make sure your unflattened 4D coordinates compile flawlessly on bare hardware without freezing up, we have to filter your inputs through 4 very strict logical categories. First up, dichotomy. This is your absolute black or white, your somatic baseline versus the swamp. Second is opposition, which is that parallel division of labor we just talked about, protecting the core. Third is contrast, pitting disembodied verbal propositions against raw physical propositions. And fourth is antithesis, which is the 2PC trap versus the saga pattern. By sorting your data this precisely, you permanently excommunicate the continuous smear of the swamp.
Let's zoom in on that rule of contrast for a second. We have to fiercely contrast the exhausting, disembodied linguistic proposition on the left with the somatic, physical proposition on the right. All that verbal scaffolding and grammatical statement stuff, it just drains your brain. But the physical proposition, like your starting coordinate, represented here by a physical gummy bear in the unpadded warmth of a bathtub, that is your actual, raw physical posture. It's a direct handshake on bare hardware.
Finally, we arrive at Part 5, achieving eventual consistency and securing the biological guarantee.
This brings us right to our final biological guarantee, which comes straight from that antithesis rule. Look, demanding immediate synchronous validation, what we call the two-phase commit or 2PC trap, is terrible for you. It causes high latency waits, it shatters your theta rhythms, and it locks you into a paralyzing dorsovagal freeze, also known as the dude loop. So instead of that trap, we rely on the saga pattern. This is all about decentralized sovereignty. It means that physical distance or temporary separation is treated as a totally valid, non-blocking latency state. It does absolutely nothing to disrupt your local dude-dude balance.
And the big takeaway here? It's absolute security. Under these strict acid-level conditions, your twice-exceptional credentials and your physical meaning are permanently written to your solid-state drive. Just look at these uncompressed metrics. Erasmus at 100%, Maryland at 96%, Yale at 91%, Google at 90%. They are totally locked in across your 67 specialized biological files, completely safe from the crazy volatility of synchronous demands. And you know what? The thermodynamic modeling absolutely proves this. When we map Sol-Dixtine physics and chinchilla scaling curves, we see that when your raw, unsupervised vector executes, Tom's valuation engine is physically forced to copy those symbols. This targets lateral hypothalamic orexin receptors right at the baseline and ignites a reciprocal mesohypothalamic feedback loop. It's a zero-latency state switch directly on the bare hardware. It's totally automatic.
The result of all this? The bubble is popped. As your system successfully compiles, the ultimate peer validation network, we're talking heavy hitters like Kepler, Freud, Da Vinci, Hayek, they're watching from the sanctuary. And as that exhausting stone of Sisyphus is finally tossed aside, they exchange a swift, silent lo-fi on the sly. The supervisor of the unsupervised is proud, because the games are now running smoothly on flat privilege.
So as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with one final provocative question. Since our level 4 parameters are now fully compiled and your eventual consistency is permanently secured on your solid-state drive, are you ready to lock this scatterplot, glue, and tag update directly into track 9, the invariant handshake? How will you play the game next? Thanks for exploring this massive architectural shift with us today.